How would it feel to have a thriving fitness business and have the freedom to enjoy life at the fullest? Well, that is exactly what the Trainer Revenue Multiplier Show is going to give you. My name is Mathew Park. This is Jaime Filer.
Hey, guys.
And we are here to serve.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Trainer Revenue Multiplier Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jaime Filer, and I am joined by two of the best guys I know, not just in the fitness industry, but in life in general, and they happen to be in the fitness industry. Nick Langer, Greg McCoy, how are you guys?
Doing good.
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. And if you guys don't recognize BR Physiques or Hidden Gym as brands, what are you even doing in the fitness industry? Both of these guys have, funny enough, you both own 3 gyms, which is freaking awesome. And you obviously run successful online coaching businesses as well, which is really the reason we wanted to have you on. Also, you're both married, you have families. There's nothing you don't do. Again, one of the reasons you guys are beacons, you're role models. I mean, Greg, you're a leader in TRM as well. Nick, you're a leader in your community. So I wanted to pick your brains specifically about leadership and what makes you guys so successful. So my first question is, how did you know that you were a leader? Is that something that came naturally to you, or was it a fake it till you make it? Or Greg, were you handcuffed to a situation?
Nick, you want to go first? You want me to kick it off?
You can kick it off, man.
Okay. I think it was a little bit of both. I think you know, as you grow up in sports, for me, it was sports, and then student councils and fraternity president and all these things. You just kind of end up, I can't sit there and not take ownership of the situation. Like, if something's happening and I can make a positive change, then I just automatically kind of go into like, okay, guys, this is what we need to do. And yeah, I don't know, I can't not do it. So it's something, you know, inside of me. And then once you kind of realize like, okay, that's my nature. And then you find ways to get better at it, and you know, but ways to empower other people to support you in what you're aiming at.
I love that. Okay. So it is your natural inclination to take ownership. I love that.
Yeah.
Nick, how about you?
So I'd be kind of on the same board there. You know, I think individuals that are in the position to lead have been kind of innately given that purpose. You know, every person that I've met that's a successful entrepreneur or leader pretty much takes ownership at all times for everything. And most of the time, that's our biggest downfall, is that we try to stay in control all the time. But at the same time, you know, I think for myself specifically, you know, even from I would say early, like high school, I was actually told by pretty much every one of my teachers that I should be a teacher or in that perspective, right? And I think that's one point that leadership really has to be shown for, and that is kind of underlying between any great leader, is they're good at educating. They're good at kind of giving the reason for why, you know, why we're saying, hey, this needs to be done this way, right? And actually giving the purpose behind the action. And, you know, that's, I think, again, that's just a way that our brains are a little bit more wired, is more of kind of trying to be in that constant education, constant growth phase, and kind of spreading that with people around us. So, yeah.
I love that. I can't picture you as I could picture you as a teacher, but given the growth that I've seen from you, I can't see either of you in any other roles other than what it is you're doing now. So a runoff question I have from that is, what do you think are the biggest obstacles to career growth in our industry? Like, I get it. Not everyone is necessarily cut out to be a leader or a gym owner, but what do you think is the biggest thing that gets in people's way in our industry?
I mean, I know with us and a lot of incoming talent, young and, you know, it broadens the spectrum, but we get a lot of, you know, young people coming in that want to join the fitness industry because they love it personally. They want to live that lifestyle. They have found that, you know, it's rewarding to get other people there. Most of them you know, like probably a lot of people watching are attracted to the personal training position. And so I know that for me, it's with a lot of folks, it's, hey, look, can be a career, not just the part-time job until you start your real job. So I think there's that stigma that we've got to get past, that it's like, you know, you can treat this as serious as an attorney would treat his day. And you will be rewarded for that. And it's a lot more fun than being attorney, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think that the stigma is definitely one of them. And then I think just having the right avenues to know how to make a career out of it. And that's one of the great things that TRM has accomplished, is like, one, just realizing like, oh, wow, I'm sitting in a room with people that are making 10, 20, 30, $40,000 a month. I didn't even think, like, I was, you know, they're like happy to make, you know, an hourly rate at LA Fitness and piece of life together. So I think that realization of what's possible, and then, you know, providing the tools to know, okay, people are doing this, and how are they doing it? So that would be kind of my first answer on that.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I see from a lot of like the young coaches, especially on like the team that are kind of coming on board, is there's two things that I see that are kind of missing with a lot of people. Number one is self-confidence. So they just don't have confidence in themselves as a coach. And they don't have confidence in what they're worth. And so a lot of the times they just don't actually take the action needed to actually produce a strong business. And then outside of that is constant skill acquisition, and just being to the point where they're constantly trying to learn and level up. You know, I can speak for myself, and I'm sure Greg's the same way. I can see all the books on his bookshelf back there, right? It's one of those things where you have to be on a constant growth pattern, right? And the trainer that I was 2 years ago is not the trainer that I am today. And the business person that I am today is not who I was a year ago. And I think that's where a lot of people limit their growth potential, is they kind of get complacent once they do start to get into this industry. And then I think another point, that just to go to Greg's point, is a lot of individuals that come into this, they're like, well, I like working out. Well, that doesn't mean that you're going to like training other people, right? And for a lot of individuals, I've seen it multiple times. A lot of the coaches that I've kind of funneled out of our system is because of the fact that once they started getting into coaching other people, they began to realize that they didn't like being in the gym as much as they wanted to, right? And, you know, when you're in here, you know, 12, 14 hours a day training people or whatever it might be, you're going to find out real quick if you enjoy it or not. And so, you know, I think that's another limiting factor that people just don't really think about when they start doing this. And a lot of them get discouraged coming out of the gate, right? And so, you know, in this industry, it takes years to build a good roster that's going to be solid with you, that's going to, you know, actually refer people to you, you know, and you have to understand that and be okay with the fact that you're going to be grinding for a little while. Yep. And the only bonus is that we have things like this and like social media that we can actually utilize and leverage, where when I started in 2010, it was go up and shake hands and introduce yourself and make a sale in person, right? So it's kind of changed the dynamic of how fast people can come into this, but it also changed the dynamic of how good you have to be at this job as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Solid answer. So to piggyback off the question, I mean, both of you have referenced the past. You know, Nick, you said when you started in 2010, things look completely different. Greg, you said avenues for how to make a career out of this have changed. So I'm curious, I mean, both of you, we saw through COVID, right? Online training completely exploded. Both of you grew in person, right? You both have 3 gyms. It's crazy. I've seen your expansion since 2020. What do you think is the next big trend in our industry?
In, you know, in personal training related, gym industry, or any of the above?
Any of the above. Anything you have your hand in. What is the next big trend?
Yeah, well, that's a hard one. Nick, if you got an answer, you're welcome to jump in.
Yeah. So, you know, just kind of looking at the current industry, one shift that I'm seeing, and actually it's probably due to COVID more than anything, is I'm actually seeing a lot more of a shift back to in-person working one-on-one with coaches. I'm actually seeing a much bigger connection to working with like at home and local individuals rather than being so online based, because I think people are searching for that connection a little bit more. Now, with that being said, if you're really good at online coaching and you're actually, personable and you have the time to actually do those calls where you're seeing people face to face, you can give that same experience. But I'm a firm believer, and I'm seeing it in the numbers, especially in our gyms and how fast they're growing, that a lot of people are coming back to in person. They're wanting to be in an environment, they're wanting to be in a culture, and a lot of people, due to COVID, are actually craving that culture again and that environment again.
Greg, are you seeing the same thing?
Agreed. Yeah, no, I think that's, I would agree with that. Kind of what came to mind when I gave myself 30 seconds to think here. Two things I'm keeping my eye on. I was in a conference 2 weeks ago about life sciences, and I've also been in a couple conferences over the last couple years where we're seeing medical and fitness start to collaborate. And so it's great to see that start to happen. I think many of us in the health field have our opinions about how the medical system works and, kind of band-aiding symptoms versus treating causation. So that's good news. I think it's going to take a long time. And we're also up against big forces like, pharmaceutical companies. But, I think if personal training could be something that people build to their insurance to combat obesity and heart-related diseases, that is going to be something in the future. Like I said, I think it's going to take a long time. And I think we as an industry need to grow up. Let's be serious. Like, doctors don't take personal trainers serious. And some of that is our own fault. You can get a $200 online certification, and no wonder a doctor that spent 15 years in medical school is not going to trust you. He shouldn't. So I think there's, we need to raise the bar in personal training in general to be able to make that a reality. And then on the gym side, I've been kind of saying for years that, the big box gym is dying out. I don't really know how much longer they call them HVLP clubs in the industry, but the high value, low price gyms are going to last. Like, how much cheaper can they freaking get? Right. And there's just more and more of them. Like, how many people can copy Planet Fitness already? So that bubble is going to burst at some point, but I know, and I don't know Nick's pricing. I would assume closer, more on the premium side, just about the amount of services that they offer. But like for us, we've really niched down and found that, the most of the people that come to our gym you couldn't pay them $10 a month to work out at a gym like that. And that community is getting bigger. Luckily, I think CrossFit helped with that. Powerlifting is growing by leaps and bounds. Like, the whole, raw lifting movement has really, really taken a hold, especially like young college kids. So I think, it's like when I started 15 years ago, to have a cool gym was really easy. Like, you could put just some old hammer strength and play loud music, and you were the only show in town. And now it's you got to have a really freaking good gym, because there's a lot of cool gyms now. There used to be one in 5 cities, and you could write one Men's Health article and cover every cool gym. And now it's there's multiples in a zip code, and it's competitive as shit. So it's fun to see the evolution. I think all in all, it's good for us as an industry, though.
I was going to say, it probably makes you guys step up a little bit. Right?
Yeah, definitely does. Definitely does.
Fun.
Yeah.
One thing to kind of mention, and he kind of sparked my brain on this one, and it's actually something that I've been implementing, which is the reason why our coaching team has actually grown as fast as it has, is much like what you talked about, where I think a lot of coaches need to start really, and I think it's shifted quite a bit in the industry, but I think a lot of coaches need to shift into getting a full-on functional health education and understanding what they're actually looking at, because functional health is only going to get more and more prevalent in our society, just due to everything that we've got going on. So from a coaching standpoint, you need to be investing in yourself when it comes down to understanding, hormonal processes, understanding how the body works, especially when it comes down to working with females, and actually truly understand what you're doing from that standpoint in order to kind of set yourself apart in the industry. And I think that's honestly where majority of this is shifting to, which is why, I told Jamie before we started this, I'm actually looking at putting an HRT clinic directly in one of our facilities, so that we can pair that together and have the medical side with the coaching side in one spot. So
yeah,
your
great.
answer, Nick, is also very similar to, you know, Greg's answer about why people aren't successful in the industry is that they only see this as a part-time gig. They only see this as a stepping stone between when you're in college and when you get your big boy or big girl job. It doesn't have to be like that. Again, you can be making $50K a month as long as you continue your education and keep up with the trends, right? You don't have to be like a bouncer forever.
correct.
Going back to the leadership side of things, again, as we talk about growth and expansion, what have been some of the biggest challenges you guys have experienced as leaders?
Oh, it's a daily challenge. I could give you one per day for the last 2 weeks, I think. I mean, you know, as your organization starts to scale, you know, leading 3 people is different than leading 10, is different than leading 30, is different than leading 70. Like, you have to adapt to the size of your organization. And if you aren't building a pipeline of leaders behind you, you're going to be in a world of hurt when you hit a certain growth stage. Sure. Because you haven't, like, it's, you know, and I was bad at this through most of my career, honestly. You know, I would kind of surround myself with assistant types that more just extended my ability to do what I wanted to do, but it required me to tell them what to do. And I wasn't teaching anybody how to think. I wasn't giving them room to make a decision and fail. And so you have to, like, give people room to become a leader, let them mess it up and learn for themselves. But then the you know, and that's painful. You're going to lose clients, you're going to lose revenue while they're messing it up, right? But the flip side of that is, you know, fast forward 2 years, and instead of having someone that needs to call you about what to do today, you have someone that can handle complex situations and tell you about it. And then you might just say, like, you handled that perfect. How about next time we try this a little different? And you're having more higher level, like, leadership conversations versus, like, telling them what to do.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay. Nick, do you have a different answer?
I mean, he pretty much nailed it, pretty much down to a T, because that is probably one of the hardest things. As a leader, one of the hardest things for me to kind of, again, kind of like I mentioned earlier, in a mindset that we have, especially when we build something from the ground up and it's our baby, quote unquote, right? It's very hard to let go and, you know, let loose of those reins and allow other people to step into their own, you know, position and actually be able to let them make calls. Yeah. And have that trust in them when you know that your life, your baby is on the line, right? And so it is a very hard thing to do, but it's a lesson that I've had to learn over the past a year and a half here as well. Is at the end of the day, I'm focused on building leaders and building people that are horizontally related to me, right? In the aspect that when we're looking at individuals that are around us, I'm no better than anybody else. And actually, I challenge myself to get to a point where the coaches that work underneath of me, the people that work for me, they're actually better at the job than I would have been, 100%. Right? And so that's my entire goal. And it's a hard goal to actually start to achieve because it takes a level of maturity as a business owner to be able to let go and trust in your people. But, you know, I've seen pretty damn cool things happening now that I've just allowed myself to do that and let people make mistakes. And you know, it's a headache every once in a while. And, you know, as the business owner, we have to step up and take responsibility, but at the same time, it's also part of being able to let the business grow and get yourself to a point where you're not literally working, you know, all day, every day inside your business.
Yeah. So you both mentioned letting go as essentially a core component, stepping back. Greg, you mentioned letting people fail. Nick, you mentioned it in terms of empowering people. What supporting skills do you think are important as a leader and to build other leaders within your company?
Yeah, I mean, I love doing this stuff. You know, we're big on education. That's why we have, you know, you and Matt talking with our team constantly, have a kind of variety of consultants that we'll meet and get training on. If someone's stuck, then, you know, I want to give them the tools. And sometimes I know the answer to that, or sometimes it's more powerful from a third party. And, like, I want a couple coaches to sit down with Matt and get that energy and get that, like, he's going to say it differently than I would, and it might stick. Yeah. So I think continuing education is a big part of it. And then, you know, you can't, like, I think one thing I've kind of learned in that same context is, like, you can't just pass it off and forget about it. You have to realize, like, okay, I'm handing it off, and now I need to, like, my job now becomes not doing it, but checking on it, supporting it, what's going good, what's not. And then once you've had that conversation for 6 months, then it's, you know, maybe that might be a weekly check-in, every 2 weeks. Maybe then at some point you're doing it once a quarter. And you kind of like, you're like letting it go slowly versus just like, I told you to handle this and you screwed it up. Like that's kind of an unrealistic expectation. So you get better at how to pass things off and where you can support, where you can get them support if you're not qualified to support. Like, you know, I'm trying to coach, like, our business is bigger than ever. And I've had my bookkeeper now she's been with me like 12 years. This is the biggest thing she's ever done. And I'm not the person to coach her, right? Like, so, you know, I've got someone in an accounting firm that's like, I could just pay them to do it, but that's, you know, I rather her develop. So it's like, okay, you're going to coach Mary on how to do books for 3 gyms now. Then it's, you know, 10 times the size of it was 3 years ago. So it's those, like, you're not always qualified to coach your staff. But that, you know, you got to find the people that are and keep your team growing.
So continuing education for all the people around you.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. I love it. Nick?
Yeah, I think in relation to kind of what he was talking about is, you know, our job at the end of the day is to start to really make sure that systems are actually operating correctly. And so, you know, creating those for our individuals to actually kind of plug and play. And then once we know that our individuals that we have on our team can actually follow the systems that we have in place, then it should run pretty easily and you're able to actually kind of take a step back and watch it flourish, right? Now, at the same time, people get complacent, so we have to keep our eyes on it, and you can't let it go without having some sort of checks and balances. But, you know, allowing it to not be one of those things where, if I could say there's one thing that most people hate more than anything else, is micromanagement. So if we can do it on our best side to actually empower and encourage. And so, like, one thing that I do is, you know, when my coaches close new clients or when we have like a positive thing, I reinforce that right away. Hey, good job, right? Like, I don't wait for like the end of the week. It's one of those things where it's like, right when that happens, I encourage it because I understand that will only motivate them more. That will only allow them. And anybody that's around me knows that I don't give praise out very easily at all. And so when it does happen, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm doing it because I fully believe that you are capable of doing more, and you're doing a great job. And I appreciate that you're, you know, doing what we've talked about and you've learned and you're applying the systems. And so, you know, I think that's another really big point, is just making sure that you do encourage those good habits that you do see happen with your people. And then when it does come time where things break, and it always happens, you as the owner have to go, okay, this is my fault first. So why did this happen? Okay, now let me have a conversation to kind of move it in the right direction.
I love that answer. Oh my God. I have 4 more questions written down. We're clearly going to need a part 2. But before I let you guys go, any last words of wisdom for budding, not just entrepreneurs, but people who want to run a team, be it online or in person?
I think it's pretty clear from this podcast that you should have a beard and a black snapback. So if you don't have that, that's where I would start.
100%.
No, you know, on the real, I mean, you got to start somewhere. If it's your dream, then dive in, and you're gonna figure out if you got it or not, right? But, you know, so, you know, listen to stuff like this. I'm a bookworm, as you can see from behind me. I mean, just whatever your goal is, someone else has already done it, and it's not that hard to figure out what they did. It's a little harder to do it, but you can figure it out. So get in the game, figure it out as you go. Yeah, I think if you've got the drive for it, and as Nick said, if you're constantly seeking improvement, you'll find a way. So It's kind of generic motivational advice, but it is what it is. There's a reason that everyone says stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's cliche for sure. It's cliche for a reason. People just think that there's another way, right? Like they don't see the path in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Nick?
One thing that I preach nonstop to anybody and everybody is create levels of discipline, right? And so in business, in whatever goal you have in life, no matter what it is, could be business, could be bodybuilding, could be strength sport, whatever it is, you've got to have discipline in order to be successful. And, I think that's what I'm seeing most people lack more than anything else is discipline, and being able to keep that accountability to themselves, because being an entrepreneur, being in this industry is not an easy thing, right? It is not something that trust me, I can guarantee that Greg and myself have woken up many days and been like, I don't want to talk to a single person. I want to be left alone. But it's the discipline in our actions, knowing that every single day stacks up and every single day needs to be utilized in order to actually get to the goals that we've envisioned. And I think all that comes down to is just creating that skill of discipline and constantly nurturing that in order to become better. So
I love it. I love it. Guys, thank you so much for your time and your energy on today's podcast. We appreciate you. Where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook, greg.w.mccoy, or you can look up, we're hidden_gym or hiddengym.net. So that's where to find us.
Love it. Nick?
And then mine is BR_Physiques. And then our gyms are Iron Heaven Gym. And then I also have the BR Physiques coaching company that links are in my profile. So
awesome. And thank you guys so much for listening. We appreciate you. If you like what you heard, subscribe, share with your friends, rate us high on iTunes so we can impact more trainers. And until next time, enjoy the rest of your day and we will catch you soon.